This video is sponsored by Full Moon Features. If you love horror collectibles, make sure to check out Full Moon's Tiny Terrors. Stick around for more information at the end of the video, or go to the website in the link below. Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. And yes, we are continuing on with our Splatterthon events and coverage. This time with another exclusive, slightly early review for you here. Yes, this comes out in 2 days, just like it seems like everything else under the sun. I mean, the first week of October, Luke, is absolutely stacked. And we've gotten to talk about quite a bit of what's coming out, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot coming out this week, a lot streaming next week as well. So we're going to be jam-packed here. We're really kicking off the month of October, I would say, on a high note.
Absolutely. I mean, we got Pet Sematary, of course, Exorcist Believer, which we will be dropping a review for tomorrow. But let's talk about Totally Killer for a second, because this was something that I heard about it. I think I saw a trailer, but it was not something that really totally caught my eye. You know, I actually haven't seen Happy Death Day or Happy Death Day 2 or Happy Death Day 2U, and it really felt like that, though, from the trailer. It felt very much in line with those films, just from that kind of horror comedy angle, the mask being, just kind of a, skin-toned, kind of thing, and then just a face, I guess, and then, just the stabbing and the killing. It's like it all felt very similar with a little bit of a sci-fi twist.
Yeah, I think, I did not watch a trailer for this. I didn't get around to it. I'd always meant to actually check out the trailer. I just know as soon as this released, conceptually, a lot of people were comparing it to The Final Girls, which I have yet to see. I do own it digitally. I just haven't gotten around to seeing it, but I definitely want to see it after checking out Totally Killer. But yeah, I definitely did expect some sort of Happy Death Day vibes from this, because I did see the first film, and knowing what the concept here was, that's what I was expecting out of this, and kind of that tone as well. And I know people speak pretty highly of Happy Death Day. For me, I was kind of in the middle with it, because it's no secret my grappling match with horror comedies continues. But yeah, this one I didn't really go in with too much of an expectation at all.
Yeah, and I was in the same boat with you. I did actually watch the trailer, but again, I kind of disregarded it. This was something that we was on the docket, was on the potential table for us for Fantastic Fest, but alas, it was a little bit too big of a property, I guess, or something another. We didn't get to see it there, but luckily Kim Moss up here in Cleveland, she was hosting a screening, and we got to actually invite some of the members of the Akron Horror Hounds came out with us. We were able to give away tickets to this, so this was a lot of fun for us just to get involved. And to be frank, I was kind of walking in there expecting to just say, hey, the movie's whatever, but we had a good night. And I'm actually happy to report I actually quite enjoyed this. I thought this was a very fun horror comedy.
Yes, and I will second that. Again, I always have my particular thoughts about horror comedies, and a lot of the time I am fairly negative on them. But I'll say this one, from beginning to end, I think this one was a really good time. I think, the comedy that they inject in here, sometimes I know we just got done reviewing Shaky Shivers, and for me, that comedy didn't hit for the most part. Felt a little forced. This one, I mean, I think it has its moments occasionally, but overall, I'd probably say about 95% of the film, I think the comedy does hit. It's something that is timely. It feels natural, doesn't feel overly forced, and then especially the playing with the time period as well. I think I think that can be overused, especially now here in 2023, where so many things have been hyper 80s. I was really undecided on how they were going to be able to pull that one off, but I think the comedy works so well. They meld in these references from current day to back in the day, especially with some of the takes from the 80s and how they don't really age that well. And I think, a lot of that stuff was really well done. It had me laughing, actually.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. It was quite surprising. Just much I found myself laughing, because again, I think I'm more of a comedy apologist than you. You know, it doesn't take much for me to back and laugh. I think the biggest thing for me is that, I don't necessarily if you got to walk a fine line between, being like really absurdist cringe humor. And like I can get down with that. I love shows like I think you should leave and things like that on Netflix. But I when it comes to telling it in more of a narrative format, it's hard. It's really hard to do. But this one, although I can't sit here and say that every single joke worked for me, especially towards the beginning, where it's kind of establishing a lot of the relationships with between our main character and her mother and everybody. It felt very safe. It felt very much what I expected. And then as we get into the concept here, as things start progressing, I loved the juxtaposition of her being from 2023 and talking to people in the 80s and just having to kind of mentally check herself at times and be like, oh yeah, you guys don't know about this. This is something there, and that's stuff that's been done before. But I totally think that a lot of the enjoyment of that comes from the performance, and I think it's Kiernan Shipka is the lead actress here. She is fantastic. I thought that she brought a lot of charisma, a lot of passion to this character that really gets you through this entire film. I think that she's so much fun, and you can really see some of that final girl energy radiating from her. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and I think, looking at it, a lot of the approach comes down to the script writing, but also a lot of it is on the shoulders of the delivery of it. And I think, as our lead actor here, really carrying this film, I think her approach to the delivery of the serious moments as well as the comical performances as well, I think they're very strong. I think she really sells it. It does not feel forced. It's sometimes I think people tend to actors tend to crank it up way too much and kind of have that delivery that's not as genuine. But I think like hers was subtle at times when it needed to be, and then a little more comedic when it had to be as well. I think she was able to read the room, read those scenes, and kind of give us the delivery that we needed to make the comedy work here. Because sometimes, when we're in these horror comedies, the comedy almost takes you out of it. It doesn't really facilitate from scene to scene because you're kind of still cringing a little bit at the last scene, and it really takes you out of that next scene. But here, I think they flow seamlessly. I think there's a lot of times where you're still smirking at a joke in the prior scene while there's another joke being delivered in the next scene, and I think it all really works for me. This is something where I don't know. I'm very surprised that I was so happy with this one, to be honest.
Yeah, same. It is a nice surprise. We never go into a film wanting it to be negative or trying to have those preconceived notions. But I mean, you really can't help yourself when you kind of are inundated with these kind of modern horror films that kind of try to walk that comedy edge, and to have something that does feel fresh, that does feel warranted, that feels like it is actually trying with these dialogue and these characters. It's nice. I found myself at one point. There's a sequence in the cabin that turns into kind of a brawl with our main antagonist. And, I genuinely, something happens to a character and I was like, wow, like that's, if that is what I think just happened, and it wasn't, but I was like, that's pretty ballsy, and they do a lot with this concept, which is surprising. You think with it being kind of that time travel, like, we're making fun of Back to the Future kind of thing a lot here, that's really all this film has under its sleeve. But I am happy to report that that's not all. They do a lot with this concept. They actually show some angles that I had to compliment here, that you don't see too often in time travel movies. And I mean, if you want me to get a little bit more specific on that, it's not necessarily a spoiler. It's not really a big spoiler, because it's not talking about details. But, in time travel movies, you're always, waiting to see what are the effects in the world. Like, what have you changed in the world since you've interacted with the past? I appreciate that this film actually cuts back to the present a couple of times and you deal with another character or a set of characters, and you actually get to see those effects taking place during the film, and it's so refreshing. It's such a unique concept to that, and I really enjoyed it. And I think that it works really well, and they actually take the time to take a more unique approach to time travel than just the standard typical, oh, we're going back to stop a killer.
Yeah, and honestly, it really felt the uniqueness here felt really thorough. Where it was like they really, it seems like they really did take this screenplay and try to think of every nook and cranny to kind of really get the audience. I think as audience goers, we're always trying to look for those plot holes and the same old, same old. But this one, I think they really did approach it in a unique manner where we were looking at photographs and we were kind of explaining different things and how that butterfly effect from back in 1987 to current time, and how you kind of remember things that maybe don't exist anymore. And I think that type of stuff is really unique and very different in terms of bringing a different flavor to these time travel films, because so many stories have been told. It's very hard to kind of bring something unique, something fresh into it. And I think Totally Killer did achieve that to an extent, where it was really fun to kind of explore this idea of time travel in a little bit of a different manner than what we're used to seeing. And it really kept you engaged throughout this thing of, what was going to happen next. Because, anytime we get into this time travel element, we're always looking for that butterfly effect of how what you do in the past is going to affect the future. And it really does heighten those stakes. And I really did feel like Totally Killer did heighten those stakes for all of our actors involved.
Absolutely. There is an aspect, though, that I do have to throw some criticism at, and it is one of those things that I think everybody, as horror fans, slasher fans, we go into it hoping, really wanting, us to get a potential, and I never expected this from this film, but I wanted a little more, was from the actual antagonists themselves, the killer. If you are an eagle-eyed viewer, you kind of see at least where this is going from, the first 15-20 minutes of the film. And I just don't think there was enough uniqueness to what that reveal actually turns to be. I think that the concept alone here with the time travel and how they integrate it is great. But there isn't a whole lot of, really anything too special when it comes to our masked assailant here. And I gotta say, like, the look, it's cutesy, it's different, but it's just still not enough there for me to sit here and say that it's in any form iconic or really something that I'm gonna rave about. I think really what I'm gonna end up again walking out of this film remembering more than anything is the way they use time travel and our lead actress and her chemistry with the other characters. I think that the antagonist in this is rather weak.
Yeah, for me, I wasn't necessarily underwhelmed with the unveiling, because they kind of do give you a little bit of a twist of to what you're kind of expecting, because they added a little bit of a different element into it. Once you think you have something figured out, they kind of throw another curveball at you. And I think they do play with the element of time travel enough to kind of, when we look at motives and people knowing things or not knowing things, they kind of try to sway you in a sense. And, I think it being maybe seasoned horror moviegoers, it's a little bit easier for people to kind of pick out things. But I think they did their best in terms of trying to kind of sway you and try to, as you're making a guess, try and to deduce every little element. They try to kind of backpedal a little bit and try to give you, an opposing view of it, so you can kind of start second guessing yourself a little bit. And for me, I don't necessarily think Totally Killer was meant to be something where we're creating a Michael Myers or Freddy Krueger or anything like that. I think this was kind of just a fun little chapter in slasher history here, where it's like, oh, well, we have something very nice, very digestible with that hook on it. And for overall, I think it really did do the trick for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. The film overall is still very enjoyable. But I just, I need to be honest and preface that, I just think that They could have done a little bit more with it, maybe spice it up a little bit more, make it a tad bit more personal. It just really feels like things are kind of, this is the most natural way we could resolve it. I think for a film that goes so heavy with, its detail oriented approach to the time travel, to actually making the characters something of value and something that you enjoy following, even the side characters who we haven't talked about much. I think that most of the friends are very funny. I think that a lot of the dialogue they throw between each other is actually pretty good. And they do a good job of making these really unlikable people, kind of let their personality shine through as the film goes on. They don't just stay those archetypes for the most part. They really they stay for the comedy element with that, but you do get to see a little bit more of them. And they do become more relatable in a sense. I just think that, I wanted a little bit more from our antagonist, but it doesn't, pull anything away from my overall enjoyment of the film.
Yeah, I don't think it hinders the quality of the film in any sense. To touch on our kind of a group of characters or group of teenagers, and I mentioned sometimes that we all fall into these kind of jocks or the brain or anything like that, and it can kind of take someone out of the film a little bit. But here we really do cross that line of you know it feels almost Mean Girls in a sense, and I know there's a reference actually in the film of it. But we almost cross that line to be like, okay, we do get to see that other side of these characters that were meant to be kind of antagonizing our lead actor here. And then we kind of get that different element, a different dynamic of, again, another reference that they use is Breakfast Club. It almost feels like, we kind of cross that line and we get to sit with all these characters in the kind of break down those archetypes and kind of, we get past that and we kind of really get the personalities and how there's a lot of interplay here. So, they run the risk of, when you kind of get those, the brain, the jock, the popular girls, you almost run that, it's almost annoying, it's recycled, it's boring, but I don't feel that here. I felt like all the characters here were, you want to be in that friend group and you can kind of pick them out. They all have their different personalities. They surpass that. So, I think overall, for me, this was a very quality viewing.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I do second that. It was definitely a big surprise for how much I enjoyed this one. And I definitely see myself going back and revisiting this one. I would definitely give this a watch. Even my wife, who came with us, both our wives came, and I would say that we talked about it after the showing when we were driving home, and they're not super. It takes a little bit extra to impress them. This wasn't something that was necessarily, I didn't think would be totally up their alley, but when it comes to these advanced screenings, especially ones where you have to go to a theater, it's always fun to go out and get away from the kids for a night. And I think that I was totally surprised with just how much they enjoyed this. They were speaking very highly of it. They are actually looking forward to this coming out on Amazon so they can go back and rewatch it now, knowing the twists and turns, so they can see if they can figure it out.
Yeah, this is gonna be a fun rewatch for the Halloween season here. I'm eager for this to drop so that I can give it another viewing. I definitely will be checking it out again, probably this weekend. Honestly, it's so digestible, it's fun, it's lighthearted in a sense, but then also there are some gruesome moments in here. So
Mm-hmm.
I think, honestly, going into this film, I couldn't ask for more, because I think this is going to have a pretty high rewatch value of just being able to turn this on in an afternoon and just let it play, and you can come in and out of it. And I think that's really all you can ask for here. So honestly, I am very excited to check out Totally Killer one more time.
100%. So I think that this is a pretty solid recommend from Luke and I here. I definitely think this is worth your time this weekend if you can fit it in. I mean, we also really, we liked Pet Cemetery. I think this one edges out Pet Cemetery a little bit
Yes.
for me.
Yep.
But I still think that there's some fun to be had there. Jury's still out on Exorcist, so we'll see. Those reviews are a little dicey, but hey, we're gonna check it all out. But yeah, there's so much stuff coming out that I think at least at some point this October, this Halloween season, you should make some time, sit down on a Friday or Saturday night and flip on Totally Killer. It's only an hour and 46 minutes. I really think that you're going to enjoy this very well done horror comedy.
I second that 100%.
Alrighty, guys. Well, that's going to wrap us up here for our review of Totally Killer. Let us know if you've checked out the film or if you have intentions of seeing it. Let us know what else you watched this weekend. And then, of course, we have more content on the way for Splatterthon. Lots of fun stuff there. We're still working our way through our Fantastic Fest coverage. It is starting to come to a close. We got a couple of nice big reviews coming over the weekend and into early next week with our roundup right around the corner, where we're going to give you the full breakdown on everything we got to watch. And then, of course, Exorcist. I already mentioned it a couple times. That's tomorrow. That's one of the big ones this month. We got that, and then, of course, Five Nights at Freddy's. So we'll see. Hey, and that's one thing I got to say. Exorcist, this, and Five Nights, all BLUMHOUSE properties. So they're up to bat this month. We're going to see how they do. So far, so good. But let's see how they do. Alrighty. But other than that, we do have our work we're doing with Full Moon features as well with the Tiny Terrors, so definitely check those guys out. They're super fun, super cute. There's a link down in the description where you can subscribe to their mailing list and get updates on when they go live, when you can pick those up, and hopefully, if everything goes well, we'll be able to show those off to you guys in a little bit more detail later this month. So alrighty, so that about wraps us up here. So until next time, I am Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.